Welcome back to News Now from Fox, everybody. A little after 3:30 here on the East Coast, and I promised you some cuteness on this Sunday, everybody. Well, believe it or not, tomorrow is actually the Army's birthday. So to honor that, we are learning more about Paws of War. It is an organization that helps military members of every branch bring their rescued pets back from deployment. Specifically, you are looking at these adorable photos of a puppy named Scappy. Now, he was actually found out there overseas in a war-ridden zone by someone named Sergeant Chris. You can actually see Sergeant Chris holding Scappy right here. He was found, and they just developed such an amazing bond, which, believe it or not, actually happens a lot overseas, everybody. So joining us more to talk about it is the co-founder of Paws of War, Mr. Robert Misseri. Robert, thank you so much for joining us here on News Now from Fox. How are you doing?
Great, Regina. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into the story of Sergeant Chris and Scappy, I think a lot of people want to know about your nonprofit organization. So tell us a little bit about the mission of Paws of War and really your history. How long have you guys been around?
We've been around since 2014, and one of our missions and our programs is War-Torn Pups, which is where we bring cats and dogs back from overseas when a service member rescues them. They generally come looking for them. Anyone with a heart will not turn their back on these cats and pups. They're usually in bad shape. They're usually abused, and they step up, they fall in love with them, and then they have to come back 6, 7 months, 9 months later to the States. They don't want to leave them behind. That's when we get involved.
Yeah, so now we are playing again these adorable photos of a puppy named Scappy that we had discussed. This story is just so amazing. So tell us a little bit about Sergeant Chris and this adorable baby Scappy.
So Scappy was found under a rail car, probably the only sibling left of a litter. It's a rough area there in the Middle East, and they heard something. They weren't sure if he was alive. He was. They nursed him back to health, and he became like a little mascot. He became their companion. The unit fell in love with him, and vice versa. Now they have to deploy back to America. Do they leave Scappy behind? Absolutely not. They cannot bring him back themselves, so we have to step up and do what we have to do to get Scappy, to the next step to come to America, and then they will be reunited again.
Now, this is not the only service that Paws of War actually provides for military members. Is that correct?
So no, right, correct. We provide this service for active military, and we also provide for disabled veterans who have combat veterans who have come back with any kind of disability. We provide service animals.
Robert, how many military members and pets, whether they're dogs or cats, how many pets would you say in the history of Paws of War that you've helped bring back safely?
This year alone, we are, I think, at over 100. It brings that number to about 250. It's a very, very busy year for us. The requests are coming in from all over the world, especially the Middle East. And it's been challenging, but very rewarding, extremely rewarding. When you see that service member back here in the States with that puppy or that kitten, and their smiles and the calls that you get that they can't believe that they're really seeing this animal with them here in America, it's priceless. And as challenging as it is, it's so worth it.
Yeah, Robert, actually, I'm very curious. So once you get a request from a military member overseas asking that, can you bring my dog or cat back safely? I'm moving locations and they can't come with me. What is that next step for you guys? Do you have people over there? Do you fly someone out there to get the animal? How does it work?
So we use logistic partners and rescue partners all over the world. We built up this relationship for years and now, so what happens is we immediately find a safe route to get the animal. Then the animal has to go to a veterinary clinic, and that could be 500, 600 miles away in some cases. And then that animal starts to go into a quarantine state, foster state, and then we start working on flights. Sometimes they can't fly out of that country. They have to be flown to another country. It gets very complicated. Each country is different, but sometimes we're getting phone calls. It's urgent. The animal has to leave immediately, or it's in danger for some particular reason. So it's always a crisis, and we do whatever we have to do to make sure that that animal goes to safety. And it takes about 3 to 4 months on an average to get that animal here. Most of the time, it actually comes back before the service member does, and then they reunite.
Robert, have you ever had a situation where it didn't necessarily work out? Maybe this area was too dangerous to get the pet, or maybe they were moving and they had to move very suddenly. Was there ever a situation where these service members were unfortunately forced to leave their animals with somebody else or leave them in that area?
So fortunately, we have not experienced that, but I heard so many stories from returning military members who had to leave their animals behind because they didn't know that there was an option, that we existed. And it's very heartbreaking to hear their stories. I think they regret it for life. It weighs very heavy on their hearts. But we fortunately have not had that problem. And we've taken animals out of, Syria, and it's all over the world. And we have very passionate people that want to make this happen. So we do whatever we have to do.
Now, I think a huge point here is the fact that these men and women are in some of the scariest situations of their life out there, especially as a lot of them are, in these war-ridden areas. So talk to me about the comfort and the sense of just love that these pets provide for these military service members, and why it is so important to save that connection and bring them back where they can be reunited.
The best person to hear that from is from the family members, because when they talk about when they find that pet, cat or dog, when they finally call home, that's all they want to talk about. There's no more photos of themselves. It's photos of the pet, and the whole conversation revolves around that dog or cat. And they become, of course, the family here automatically feels like that's family. But that's what it really makes a big impact for these troops. These are men and women who are sacrificing their lives, their service, their freedom, their and everything. And they have compassion when they find an animal in need. They don't turn their backs, and they don't want to turn their backs. Our military never turns their back on anything and anyone. And they don't want to do that when they have to come back to America and leave that animal behind, going back to starvation, going back to cruelty, going back to so many different things that they found them in. So it's really difficult for those who had to leave those pets behind. And I speak to too many of them, and forever it'll weigh very heavy on their heart.
Robert, what you are doing is amazing. What your organization is doing is amazing. And I can't imagine that it is cheap. What does it necessarily cost to have that mission to get these animals safely back to America?
Depending on the country, anywhere from $3,500 to $7,500 with medical. It's very expensive. We have to pay every step of the way. You have to pay. It's very expensive. It's very complicated with flights. So anywhere from between $3,500 to $7,500, depending on the medical.
So how can people support this organization and get dogs and cats, specifically like Scapy, back to America?
Well, if someone really wants to help, they can go to our website, which is pawsofwar.org. They can find the links. They can help donate. Maybe they have a corporate sponsor that wants to bring a dog over. We have so many requests right now, more than we ever had. and we just don't want to let anyone down. Our service members deserve it, and these animals certainly deserve it. pawsofwar.org.
All right, Robert Misseri, co-founder of Paws of War. Is there anything else you want our viewers to know about your organization, about these missions to bring military service members' pets home before we send you off?
Well, definitely if anyone has a family member or a friend serving overseas and they're in a situation where they do want to bring an animal back, please let them know. Even if you're speaking with somebody at a camp somewhere, and let them spread the word that we are here for them. It's never a cost to any of our service members. Tomorrow is the 246th birthday for our United States Army. We have 1 million soldiers right now, and many of them right now probably are sitting with a pet cat or a dog somewhere in the world and can use our services. So please reach out to us. If you have questions, just reach out to us.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Misseri, co-founder of Paws of War, thank you so much for joining us here on News Now from Fox and taking time out of your Sunday to tell us these amazing stories. We really appreciate what your organization is doing.
Thank you, Regina. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Robert. Once again, everybody, taking a live look as the sun continues to set.